Alright, mate, well, you're the host of this one, so really, whenever Ralph's motif last week was pretty good as well. Well, you keep
motif? You need a motif.
Well, here's the one last week was pretty good. Yeah. So, I'm not going to repeat it. You have to go and listen to that podcast if you want to hear what that one was.
I didn't know that was a thing.
That's part of the hosting
thing. Yeah, the hosting needs a little, like a segue or a motif or something.
Yeah, you need to come up with your own one-liner. I don't know.
I'm just speaking an accent for the whole thing. When Matt hosts, he speaks in a Russian accent or something.
Please, God. Please, no.
You know I can't keep an accent.
Yeah, alright, well, let's see.
That's pressure.
That's exactly what Ralph said last week. He's like, oh no, now I'm not ready. Susan, like you're about to host a 1 hour podcast, but the moment that I say, hey, you just got to come up with a tagline, you're like, no, that's the worst.
Tagline? No.
Well, his one last week was...
Is it a personal tagline? Is it for the board game
anything
group?
you want.
Is it just...
Whatever you want.
Our listeners, mate.
Just woozle wuzzle?
Sure, why not? Welcome to Board Game Gateway. Woozle wazzle. Alright, why not?
Alright.
Go on.
Ready?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Welcome to episode 6 of the Board Game Gateway podcast. It is crack-a-lackin' tonight. And we are getting underway with Pet Peeves and having a bit of a discussion about the games we've played in the last, almost 2 weeks since the last time we were gathered around the table. We're missing one of our gamers tonight. Unfortunately, Blake is...
The spicy cough, huh?
He may have the spicy cough, we don't know. But
Mr. Hello has decided to not hello us tonight.
That's right, he's not here tonight. But we've got myself, Matt, in the hosting chair. For some ungodly reason, we have Anthony, our regular host, also here.
Is that me? That is me. I'm here. I'm still here, not hosting, which is weird for the second week in a row. But
we usually call you Nee. Like I call you Nee so often. I actually felt really weird calling you Anthony then. Like,
I think Ralph's rubbing off on you because Ralph's trying to start calling me Nee, but he calls me. You started with Nee last week, but then fell right back into Anthony by the end of the episode.
Anthony. I'm sorry. I know too many Anthonys.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. No problem.
I feel like my mother calling you Anthony.
Oh.
And we also have the wonderful Ralph as well.
Hello, everyone.
Captain, increase the gain at the wrong time over here.
Mr. Mike Peak.
That's it. Mr. Peak is me. It's all downhill from you guys.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
But yeah, tonight we're going to have a bit of a chat about some of the games we've been playing and our pet peeves with when it comes to playing games, either solo or with a group or in the conventions that a couple of us have attended or hosted at our own house, as Anthony has done. I've done it again. I called you. Something's wrong. I've never called you Anthony in my
And you've done it twice
life.
in
It's
less
the
than a
pressure
minute.
of the hosting chair.
Yeah.
It is pressure.
That's what it is. I'm now overthinking everything I say.
We'll
Thanks
get
a
better
lot.
at it. It takes time to get used to it, that's for sure.
That's okay. It's all right. It's also going to be the first time that we have audience participation in the podcast because we put it out to our Facebook community and everyone else, and we said, give us your board game and game night pet peeves, and we've had over 28 comments come back, so we're going to...
There's some good ones in there.
There are some really funny ones in there. A lot of them seem to be targeted as a specific person in this podcast, but we'll get to that towards the end, and you'll know who that is, obviously. But we also will talk about our gateway game of the week, which we just finished playing. But before we get to that... yeah, I mean, look, it's been... Ralph and I, we did the Discord last week, but it's been a couple of weeks since we played some games. So what have you guys been playing?
Well, other than our gateway game, you and I had a couple of games on Board Game Gateway as well, which I've never played on that specific...
Board Game Arena?
Board Game Arena.
Yes.
We're Board Game Gateway.
So what is Board Game Arena, Matt?
Well, that's a very interesting question. It's an online board game... site, web, I don't know, it's a hosting platform for board games, I suppose.
That's pretty cool.
With digitized versions of a lot of common games. Actually, I had to look through the list of games that are available, and there are some big name titles in there.
200 game plus library at the moment with a lot of board games.
But not your usual, Chinese checkers kind of, generic board. Like they are named games and some really, really.
Although Chinese checkers is on that, it is on that website. Yeah, it actually is. It's kind of the digital place to play board games other than, say, places like Tabletop Simulator, but it is the website. There are a couple of others around the place, but it is designed as a place where you can whip up a game and play a pickup game of any of these sort of things. It was recently bought by Asmodee, I think about 6 months ago. So it's now got a lot of financial backing behind it.
Who's Asmodee? Are they?
Asmodee are like is like the biggest board game publisher in North America. It's like,
okay.
But also, like any mobile adaptation of games, typically it's Asmodee that make those as well.
generally, because
really?
they've
Okay.
got the biggest staff, they've got the biggest budget. They're owned by some sort of investment firm in the North American over there. But they're also like games such as Great Western Trail. Barrage has just come online. You've got games like Space Base. You've got games as simple as a game that we played, Can't Stop, which we actually want to have a chat about. Matt, I want to ask you about this when we get to it. But Board Game Arena, if you have any inkling of thinking about board games and you want to try it, this is honestly the place to try board games. I will say though, the user interface is a bit.
Yeah, but I think
it's
I think
okay.
if you're trying to get, like, if you want to have a sample of games, this is a great place to start. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to set anything up. There's no mucking around on the table. It's very neat.
Yeah.
You can get around the user interface pretty easy. It's not difficult.
What I really love about it is like you can just click play now on a game you like, and you might have to wait a little bit, but typically you play against real people and you can chat to them like if you want to. But it's so easy to play a pickup game with pretty much anything, really. Simple card games.
And I noticed that there are some really cool little built-in features, like when Anthony and I played Targi, both of us had a little tag that said it was our first game, for instance. So, if you are playing against someone on the other side of the world, they at least know where you are, like, how you ranked on that game and stuff like that.
I think we played a game in real life and you still got a trophy because you got smashed.
Wow. Ralph coming in hard, just not holding back at all.
That sucks.
Wow, that's harsh.
That really sucks, man. Come on.
That is harsh.
I'm the host.
But what a transition.
Yeah, well, look, what a transition it was.
Go on.
Well,
keep transitioning. Let's go. You take over.
No, I've done enough transitioning. Don't
No,
worry.
you know what? I will tell you, though. So one of the games that we did play is that we actually did play, Matt and I. We got on Wednesday. We played a couple of games. The first one we played was Can't Stop. We played 2 games of Can't Stop, and Can't Stop, in a nutshell, is a push your luck greed style of dice rolling game. You roll 4 dice. You take 2 combinations of those dice, so whatever their sums may be. So if you rolled 2 6s, a 3 and a 2, you could take it as a 12 and a 5, or an 8 and an 8 and a 9, if my maths is correct, or whatever. And then you move up counters up those specific tracks. And basically the game is really simple. It's just roll dice, push them up the tracks, and but you only have 3 counters. So where it becomes push your luck is that once your 3 counters come online, so you maybe have a 7, 8, and a 10. From that point onwards, you have to roll on those 4 dice. You have to roll one of those combination of dice. So you have to get a 6, an 8, or a 10.
Stay alive.
And at any point, you can go, all right, I'm out, and you bank in your progress, and then you can lock the tokens in where they are and to keep. So then when you come back to the next turn, if you roll a 7, you continue from where you are. But if at any point you don't roll any of these numbers that are currently on the board, you crap out and you lose all progress that you've done that entirety of the turn. Game literally plays.
It was a lot of fun to play.
It's a great
very
warm-up
easy
game.
to learn. It'd be a good game to get out just to warm people up to play a larger game. I think
Plays in about 6 to 8 minutes.
Yeah, loses people's tongues up.
Yeah, like just go, and then once people start realizing, I'll go again.
Yeah.
Oh, it worked. I'll go again. Yeah, why not? Finally a buster. But we played 2 games of that, and Matt, he won both of them. He won the first game 3-1, and then you have to finish 3 rows. The second one I thought I was going to win, and I didn't. So Matt won that one 3-2, which was really good. And then
very rare for me to win. Very rare for me to win 2 in a row, but let alone win.
Yeah, so he was off.
So I was riding on a high into the next game we played.
And then Matt said to me, he goes, "Look, I would like to play a game that neither of us know. I'd like to go into a game fresh with both of us." And I said, I've got just the game that I've wanted to try for a long time. And we decided to play a game of Targi, which is a 2-player action selection game. And it's only a 2-player game. And it's got a really interesting concept. So Targi is basically a game where you are going to put down 3 workers. They are called Targi. They're just 3 little meeples. But you can only put them on the outside of a 5x5 grid. And this 5x5 grid is all of these cards. And those cards are one of 2 things. You can either get goods, such as pepper, salt, money, or there's one other one I can't remember that you can get.
Olives?
Something like that.
Olives.
Something like that. Yeah, there's one other. It's like a food sort of thing. Pepper, salt, something else. Anyway.
Garlic?
No, now that's going to bug me.
I haven't played the game. I've only seen it. It looks great. I've wanted to learn it for ages.
This, and I'm sorry to interrupt the explanation. This is one of my issues with the actual site, was that even on my big screen, the cards were so small that occasionally I was like, oh, I can't get the iconography correct here. And now I'm thinking about, now I'm really annoyed because I can't remember what the icons were.
Well, that's another good thing that BGA does. Like, if you mouse over something, typically it pops up a little
the instructions were, but like, in the corner of a card, it had little, how much that card cost. And I couldn't detect some, like, two of the icons are yellow coloured based icons, and it was
dates.
That's
what it was.
So you have, what was it, salt, pepper, and dates.
Dates.
Yeah.
That seems weird to me.
Well, it is the Targi is this. It does have an Arabic sort of Middle Eastern flair, desert flair,
and
right?
Middle Eastern spices,
Exactly.
You got your dates.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but the game itself plays. So you have a 5x5 grid of cards. They can either be these cards, or they can be these tribe cards. And tribe cards are basically of 5 different types. I won't go through them, but essentially they provide you powers. But the way where this game becomes very interesting is that, as I said, you're only allowed to place your Targi on the outside of the board, and there is a robber who acts
around the board.
He acts as your game timer, as well as a bit of a guy who gets in the way, because you're not allowed to put your Targi on the space that the robber is on. So that means that action will be out of the game. Mm-hmm. But the way that it works is that if I place my Targi on one row or a column, Matt is not allowed to place his Targi on a row, the same row or column on the opposite side of my Targi. So for those of you...
So you can't be looking across the board.
You can't be looking across it. So that means that you have to pick alternating rows, and then once we placed our 3 Targi, we find where they intersect. Now, this does sound a bit complicated over a voice, but it makes a lot of sense when you're looking at the game board. But you find where they intersect in that 5x5 grid, and then that becomes 2 more actions that you can get. So you get the actions where the Targi are standing, plus these little actions where they intersect in the middle of the game board. And then the game will only play over 12 rounds, because by the time the robber will get back to his starting position where it's game, or someone collects 12 of these tribe cards. The tribe cards give you, as I said, special powers, potential bonus points, and they cost you the wares that you're collecting. So it's a mixture of, you're trying to take actions that potentially get you some economy going, but also at the same time trying to buy tribe cards that help you do things in the long run. Matt, this was the first time you played. You won the first game, and then I won the second game. But I've kind of described the basis of the game. But
I think I won that first game because, and it was really good to play a new game, right, for both of us. Because I often come into games to get, all right, I'm learning and catching up, and haven't really got the strategy under my belt, right. But I think in that first game that we played, I cottoned on to the fact that I could essentially block you by placing my Targi somewhere where I suspected you wanted to go. There are a couple of really cool little niche spots where it's almost like a get-out-of-jail-free card if you place your guy there. You don't get as many rewards, but you get the option to kind of move your piece around the middle of the board freely, or trade in valuables at certain economic rates and stuff like that. And so I think I got onto that bit before you did, but you'd figured out the card placement thing before I had really gotten my head around that. So by the time the second game came around, we were a bit more even keeled, I thought.
So is it just like you get points by intersecting with cards, and you get to do more actions, and
you don't get
most points wins? Essentially?
Yeah, most points wins.
Yeah.
You get the intersections aren't really the point value. You can get there are some cards that give you immediate victory points depending on their value when you place them, but you've got to place them in essentially your stable. You can hold one in your hand, and only one, for as many rounds as you want, until you can afford to pay it, or it becomes opportune to place it. And there are some rules about placement in the stable, right? So if you fill up a row, it's a 4x4, 4x3
grid at the bottom.
If you fill it up horizontally with the same style of card, you get a bonus point for that. If you have a different style of card in every cell, you get a different point for that. So, but that's all end game scoring. To be perfectly honest, as we were playing, I wasn't really looking at the victory points at all, right? I was more, okay, how do I just get to the next thing? How do I fill that next card in? Do I have enough resources? The robber that moves around is a really cool little, not only, as you said, a timekeeper, but when he gets to the corners, there's a raid action. So you have to pay a certain amount of your resources in those corner spots, or you lose victory points, right? So you have to essentially make sure, as it's coming up, you've stocked up so that you don't forfeit your own points.
There's also a little catch there, which is that, let's say I can't afford to do that. If Matt can afford, he's going to get bonus points out of it because he was the only one who was he basically paid the fare. So, hey, you were the only one who was able to do it. Here's some bonus points. But the game itself also plays... I end up winning the second game because the second end condition is once someone gets 12 of these tribe cards into their thing, the game ends, if the robber is not at there. That's the final round. Now, I didn't realize this in the second game. This is part of the thing about playing in BGA. I didn't realize that was going to be the case. I finished the game about 3 rounds out from the actual game, from the timer being finished. Yep. But what ended up happening was I was sitting there thinking, okay, I'm about to fill up my stable. I'm about to fill this all up. I don't really know what I'm going to do here. I think I'm just going to finish this and then I'll just discard cards and make life terrible for Matt. And then I took my 12th tribe card and then the game ended. I went, and I ended up winning by about 8 points or something like that.
I think I only had placed like 7 of my tribe cards at that point. So I was building up my engine to steamroll at the end.
Yeah. And so the game itself plays really, really dang good. I have to say, so it is... it's currently ranked as the 129th overall board game. Look. So people really like this as a 2-player game. It's not my favorite 2-player game, but certainly is one that I've been eyeing off for a long time. I think I am actually thinking about buying it because I really do like having a 2-player only games, so I can play with my wife and stuff. But
yeah, this game's been around for quite some time now, and I've seen it in every gamer's collection.
Yeah, it's 10 years old. 2012 was the release date,
Yeah, I've been super tempted to try it, just haven't got around to it, so definitely have to give it a go.
Yeah, so anyway, we played that. I think we're going to play a few more games of that. Definitely be one that we can, now that we've played it, we can just whip up and play. I've played a few more games by myself on Board Game Arena with randoms, and some random guys just destroyed me. So there is it does, at the start, we were both kind of going, I don't really know what I'm going for, and I'm still trying to figure out. There are some powers that you can take that allow you to do things,
We played, 2 games in, an hour and
a
little bit?
An hour and a bit, yeah. So it's about 40 minutes.
And that was new gameplay as well. So
the first one took us about 45 minutes with the teach, which we kind of taught ourselves. We both had the rulebook open, playing our first couple of rounds. And then the second game was about half an hour, but it felt a bit longer because not in a bad way. Because we
on the rulebook, I usually struggle with rulebooks, right? In that I'm yet to find a rulebook that's laid out well in that it actually makes sense consecutively and you're learning the game if you're trying to read them, right? Usually you have to play a game to really understand it. This one, it was 4 pages, maybe 5?
This wasn't the actual rulebook. This was the straightforward rules from Board Game Arena. Okay. So some guys gone to the rulebook and gone, this is obviously crap. This is what you need to know.
Because I thought it was really well laid out.
It was really good.
So that's where I found Board Game Arena is good. It's good to learn a game like that, but sometimes to me it's not a direct translation, because if I've later bought the game or played it in real life and I have to reread the rule book because I don't know how to set it up. And there's things that happen in the game that just the game takes care of it for you on the website.
I will say, we've talked about this before, but this was me with Res Arcana. Played on BGA first, didn't like it. You introduced it to me on person. I went, it clicked. And now I can play it again online. Now I have that understanding.
That's right, yeah.
But so that was Targi. That's a 2-player game designed by Andreas Stryger. And published by Cosmos Games. So, as we said, 10 years old. Still holds up. Really good game for a 2-player collection. So, highly, highly recommend that if you get a chance to play it. I'd be more than happy to introduce it to you as well. But looking, Ralph, that was what we had been playing. That was our night. But what have you been up to in the past couple of weeks?
I've played quite a few games. I played a pretty old game that's out of print. It's about 10 years old. It's called Chaos of the Old World. So that's actually in the Warhammer realm. I don't know if you guys dabbled much in Warhammer in the
Fantasy
past.
Fantasy or 40k?
I think this is more 40k.
40k, yep.
Which one's Nurgle?
Well, 40k has the Space Marines, so...
No, this one wasn't 40k. Though.
So then be Fantasy.
Yeah, so as you can tell, I haven't really dabbled too much in the Warhammer realm.
Neither have we. We just like machines.
I
we
have
just like numbers. We
miniatures
just like
and stuff.
40k. Yeah.
I used to have a Warhammer army when I was young. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I never played it properly because this was probably around the 2007 era.
Yeah.
But then I fell out of Warhammer and played Mech Warrior instead, like the hero click style. Mech Warrior was right up my alley, but that was a lot better. Anyway, point being, you played the old game.
Well, just on Warhammer though, I went to like one of those Warhammer shops, and like this is many years ago, and I thought, this guy's happy to teach me how to play, so I watched him play for 20 minutes, and just when he pulled out that pool of dice and sprawled them all along the table, and then started counting, and I'm like, this game's not for me. Like, I can't do that. I thought the moving things with a ruler, I thought that I could do that. I can get on board with that.
Every time I've walked into a Warhammer shop, I've gone, I love the idea of this.
Yeah.
This seems like a never-ending pit that if I fell into, I'd never crawl out of, though.
Exactly right.
Five scout marines cost me $45, not including the glue, and I have to put them together.
And they're not painted? No, thank you.
Mate, you're right. Like, it was a money sink. That's for certain.
Yeah, and I've seen people really sink their money into it in the past, and like it looks amazing. Like I've walked into this guy's house, he has a pool table just covered in terrain, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. But I just wanted to play pool.
You'd have to, that's right. You got to be dedicated to it. That's for sure.
That's right. But I played Chaos of the Old World, which is sort of the Blood Rage before Blood Rage. So Blood Rage is just like a area control map with Vikings, and if two people are in a same region or a sector of the map, you play a card, mine says 4, the other one says 2. Oh, I win, I have a higher number. So Chaos of the Old World is a little bit of that, where the map is divided into regions. But what's really cool is like everyone's a different faction of these Warhammer characters, and some might be like mages, and you can play a spell on that terrain. So like that magic spell only affects that little area of the map.
Right.
And all these players have different types of ways they affect the terrain itself of the battlefield. And you're each just trying to like cause like corruption in that sector of the map, and the most corruption gets certain points, and every faction has some asymmetry on them. So that was just a really interesting
So you're playing
game.
as the Chaos Warriors, like trying to corrupt the land sort of thing.
That's right.
Okay.
And that was super interesting. So there was that typical sort of fighting mechanic, but not every race wants to fight. Some of them want to put themselves in positions where they die. And so I really loved it. So we played a game of that, and the game has dials on the map, which is kind of that old-fashioned design, whereas your race can do certain things that let your dial move, and you could win just by moving your dial all the way, and you instantly win. Cool. So it's like you don't necessarily want to win every battle, but like some you do, and so I played that, and that was super interesting. So
how long was it playing?
We played it in about an hour and a half.
Okay.
My friend who was teaching it, he sort of played it many years ago, so he was relearning it as well. So typically it looks like it'll take under an hour, I'd say, but it's out of print now, so really Blood Rage is the replacement. It's a much more simplified version of it,
right.
Which I also love as well.
yeah I've yet to play Blood Rage, but you guys played it at GuberCon if I'm not mistaken, so Nick and Blake seem to really enjoy themselves playing that one, so yeah,
definitely. So that was really cool. And we played a game of Concordia recently.
We did. We got a 5-player game of Concordia going, which is for people listening to this. So Concordia is another old game. It is currently the 21st ranked board game of all time according to Board Game Geek. So it had a lot of reputation going into this. Myself, Blake, Ralph, and then our friend Damien from MacArthur Board Gamers, and your friend...
my friend Jeremy, who lives in Adelaide, so it was really nice.
So we played this over Tabletop Simulator. We played this over at 5 players, and I had to admit, I did not know what to think about this going into this game. It's a very interesting kind of route building-esque player action sort of thing. It's not really route building, but the way that you expand out from the way the game from your center play. So the way the game works.
So what's the thing?
This is Ralph's game. He played the game. Let him.
Well, I
describe
played
the
it too. We all.
I didn't play it.
I came last. Thank you very much.
You've already explained 2 games.
Right. Well, you just explained I feel attacked. Well, you are the host.
I'm the host.
Yeah, that's right. You're the host.
All right,
My vote has been cast to Ralph.
God, why did I give Matt hosting duties if I knew this was how it was going to go
I'm
down?
just curious, Ed, so what does BGA say, like, the theme of the game is?
The theme of the game. That's a very good question. Okay, so
It's
it
not
says...
route building. Well,
No, because it's not right. It's not quite.
No,
building.
the mechanisms would be action retrieval, deck building.
Yeah.
With what I'm looking for a very specific. It says point to point movement and set collection.
Yeah, that's gonna be the
But
most boring way to describe
but
this game.
but that doesn't really give it like
Point to point movement. If that's your thing, this is the game for you.
If you like moving things from one point to another point, then have I got the game for you? No, because the way that the game
Just an A to B game,
I'll let you explain it, Ralph, and then.
I'm sorry, I'm just having.
No,
having
it's
a
fine.
crack.
It's like it's kind of it's hard to visualize.
It is,
but
yeah.
it really did pose this really like a really good cerebral experience, like this really cerebral problem. But I'll let Ralph see how.
Yeah,
it goes.
no worries. So I guess the map of it, it's got a lot of table space. This game has a lot of maps to it, but the sort of base map it gives you two. Basically, it's like
The Mediterranean, essentially.
it's the Mediterranean, but like it's set around the time where like the Romans were a huge thing, sort of thing. So
Yeah, you all start in Italy. That's where we all start.
yeah,
in Rome.
We played the
essentially.
Europe map.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and there is a smaller map which is just Italy. But
Oh, is it?
We played 5 players,
So we played
which
on
was
the-
pretty much all of Europe and Gauls and things.
Right,
like
right,
that.
right.
But essentially, what you do is every player has a warehouse which you can fit like 8 resources on, and every player has 2 sort of meeples. One's a boat, and one's like an actual traditional person meeple.
Mm-hmm.
And you can move them around the map. I think 2 spaces at the start of the game, but later you can move a bit further as you level up. And what you want to do is essentially you sort of go to points on the map and you build houses. And the way you do that is if you want to build a house on the brick, you'll need to spend like a brick and a wheat sort of thing. So you have to spend resources to build houses. And there's like 5 resources, I think.
Yeah.
And some are more expensive than others, silk being the most rare. And it's really cool because the way the game plays is super simple. Every player has a deck of cards.
The same deck of cards.
The exact same deck of cards, and you just say I want to move and build. You can play the card called the Architect, and that allows you to move as many meeples as you want. I think up to 2 at the start of
Whatever
the game.
your movement capacity at the start is. Yeah.
That's right, and then you can build in adjacent buildings. So later on in the game, if you have the right resources, this is where the game's really rewarding. When you have the right resources, the right amount of money to build so many, and you can play the Architect card at the right time, you can move like 3 or 4 of your meeples and do 8 buildings in one turn. So you can have really big turns in this game, and everything sort of crescendos really nicely because you're working like 4 or 5 turns in advance to have this really big turn. So it's really fun. Everyone's got these same set of cards. You can just get money. You can sell a good and buy as many goods as you want. What are some of the other cards?
Is it still competitive?
It's very,
all
very, it's
competitive,
very, very
yeah.
competitive. So where this game so Concordia also has kind of popularized this kind of action retrieval system that we kind of touched on, which is that everyone has about 9 cards in their hand, but once you play a card, it's now down. You can't get it unless you take
So
an
you've got to play
action
at the right time.
Yes, and once at some point you can go, I'm going to use my rest action or a retrieval action, which is I bypass my turn, but I'm now taking all of my cards back into my hand.
Right,
so you're
okay.
trying to time it that I want to. Ralph knows that I'm still holding onto my Architect, but he doesn't know when I want to play it. But I know that Ralph also wants to do something that could really stuff me up. Now, one of the main keys to this game is that everyone can build in every city. So even if I've built in Carthage, Ralph can do it as well. However, the crux of it is the earlier you build, the cheaper it is. Yeah. So the more players that build in a location before you get there, it's not only just a wheat and a brick, you've also got to pay
so your land
more
value
resources.
goes up the more people are in there.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So it becomes a bit of this race because what happened was in our game, basically everyone buggered off to their own corner of the board, right? And I went south into Carthage and Egypt. Ralph went northwest up into Russia, up in that area. Damo went the other way, right? And we're all just spread out across the map. And then all of a sudden it goes out, and then
you've got to figure out
it starts to collapse upon each other as everyone starts going, crap, I need to build, because the game ends when someone builds, I think, 15 houses.
Yep.
So it's like,
or the last card's taken.
or the last, yeah, and there's a whole bunch of things. So the way that the game works as well is that there's a couple of extra actions, which is there is an auction house where you can take cards, and the further along the auction house they go, the cheaper they become. So you can, one of your action cards could be buy a card from the warehouse, and from the auction house, and the auction house as well generally are better versions of the cards you have in your hands, but then it also could be. It means that you can do, so for example, I could buy 2 more architect cards from the auction house, which means I now have 4 cards in my hand that I can use, whereas Ralph can only do it twice, whereas I can do it 4 times. So the game, it very much is this kind of dry Euro style of game where it's moving, doing things, and being precise with the timings of it.
Yeah.
And I really saw at the beginning of the game, I'm like, I don't know if I get this, or if I'm on the hype of it being nearly in the top 20. And then by the end of the game, I went, crap, I really like this, because it really gives you that action space of, okay, I really am looking at this. Now, I on the day I thought, oh yeah, I came second. Turns out that I did miscalculate. There are a couple of, like, I say convoluted, but there are things to do with gods as well. So like by the end of the game, you're collecting cards that represent the different 5 house gods, like, Mars, Venus, whatever. And they each have their own scoring things. So there are a bit of rules to go. There is a bit of rules overhead. I think our teach took us just under half an hour. We played the whole game, including teach, in 2 hours and 40 minutes. So it was a bit of a long night. And most people say that we played it at the max player count of 5. Most people say it should be played at 4, but whatever. We did it at 5, but it was fine.
We played it on BGA, on Tabletop Simulator, which is another computer program to play games with. But teaching 4 players the game, or 3 players the game, you expect it to take that long for that size of game. In actual tabletop space, I said it takes up a lot of space, but the rulebook is really small. Yeah. It's literally 4 pages, and it's designed beautifully. So it's quite a simple game to play and to teach as well. I guess the way the scoring works is most points wins, and Nate touched on it where he said, like, the points are in the cards. So you kind of need to take turns to do a bit of everything, which is gaining cards to your hand to play. But that's where the score is. So for example's sake, say every house I build that's built on a wheat farm, typically it's like 1 point. But if I had like 3 or 4 cards with that type of god on it that says build on wheat cards, that one house could be worth 4 points. So they can rack up. That's a really baseline example of it, but the cards are really important. So like I found I was neglecting the cards and getting a lot of houses out there, but I wasn't getting those multipliers.
That was the same with me. I had a lot of houses out early, but then I ended up coming last by like 1 or 2 points because I didn't have the card multipliers and stuff going. But other than that, that bit was a bit confusing because I was very interested in, like, if I go out and try and rush the houses, I can do a lot of this stuff. There's a whole mechanic that we mentioned about this whole going for like this sub. There's a sub game of trying to get gaining the goods. Yeah, gaining the goods, which we haven't touched on, which we won't really touch on. The
prefect action.
Yeah, which is one of the specific actions, but there is a whole secondary mini game going on here. There's a few, so there's a whole bunch of different systems going on. But
and there's a bit of interaction with the players. When someone does something, I might get something in return.
Yeah, there is actually a lot of interaction. You do really care what is going on.
But Concordia is really cool. Like my friend Damien brought it over, and he taught me how to play. We had a 2-player map, which was very different. So that was actually really cool, but the game didn't click for me until like 3/4 of the way in. But that was really good. But later he actually gifted it the solo version of it for my birthday, which was really cool because the way the solo version works is the exact same. You do go up against a bot, but the way the bot's controlled is I have the deck of 7 cards as normal, but when I take the prefect action, it tells me the bot gains 2 money, or the bot builds 3 houses when I play this card. Right. So not only am I like thinking, okay, I'm going to do this action now because it suits me, but I'm like, oh no, then the bot's going to spit out 2 houses. And you're weighing up that tough decision.
So is it a type of game that like ramps up until, we discussed in previous episodes how some games get to 3/4 of the way through and then you're pretty much just locked into, am I going to win or going to lose this? Or is this a slow burner the whole way through?
You never know who's winning because you don't it's not like Ticket to Ride where you gain points when you do something. the points are calculated at the very end.
Yeah.
So you never know who's winning. You can guess, but you'll never know.
It does feel like it's a slow burn. It did feel like it was building to a crescendo, but we never had, like, for example, a space base where someone just goes from 15 points to 38 in one turn. You're like, oh my god, we're already here.
Yep.
You could feel the end game coming from a long way with Concordia, but you still, it didn't feel like someone... There were a couple of turns with Damien or something did like 6 actions, so we went from being on like 4 buildings to 10 immediately, but everyone else was on 10 or 11 at that point. So we also, well, the way that the action selection works, which is that he wasn't going big on architect cards, and we all knew that, so we knew that he wasn't going to be hammering the architect action every time.
Yeah.
So the game itself did feel like a slow burn, but not a bad slow burn. It did feel like it was building towards the end, but it felt like that decision at the end of the game was what mattered. You're like, okay, every decision now is trying to maximize how many points I get because I know I need these cards to do this and
it's
that.
a very thinky game.
Yep.
I really like it because, like, to get those resources, right, you got to put it in your little factory or your warehouse, and there's limited spots there. So, like, it's that you have to manage that. You have to manage spending them all and then doing actions to get more in. So that mechanic alone is quite challenging. And then you're like, how do I best use these 6 things I've got at the moment?
Yeah.
Cool.
You're always thinking things like that.
So how would you rate this game, like, in... it doesn't sound like a Broadway gate.
No, it's not a
Definitely
game.
not. This is a... If you are a fan of... It's almost like if you like games
if you're a fan of point A to point B.
Yeah, if you're a fan of point-to-point movement... No, it's kind of like... It kind of feels like a bit of a... It's strategy-esque, right? It's basically... It's got to be that engine buildy kind of thing because you know that when I own houses, I will get specific income, so I'm trying to get that income to maximize this. It's very much that kind of standard Euro game. Like, I know we mention all the time, it's the Red Robin, the Red Horse, or the Blue Elephant, or whatever, Hansa Teutonica. If you like that kind of game, but it is that style of game. It's that kind of...
That's a game I played the other week
It is,
as well.
you did play that, but that is the style it is. It's that kind of thinky, Euro-y cubes and meeples, but with crunchy, but everything kind of makes sense. It's all very tight. The action space is very tight, and it only expands out in very logical ways. So it's like, okay, you don't know who's going to win, but you do feel like whoever won at the end of the game, you're like, nah, I see why they won. Like, I should have been doing that. So
cool.
Anyway, but that's Concordia. Highly recommended. Not a board gateway game at all, but highly recommended for that. If you have not tried it, really do recommend it. It's 9 years old, so if you haven't tried it yet, like myself, do get on it. It is a bit hard to find, but that is designed by Matt Gertz and published by... it says PD. It's by 999 Games. That's all Rio Grande Games, depending on where you are.
I got the Rio version.
Yeah, the Rio version. Yeah. So it's produced by a few different things around there. But that pretty much is what we've been playing over the past couple of weeks. So
well, except for, and I've been hanging on to this for the last 2 weeks. I played 2 games of Ganshon Clever with very different audiences. So I played it with Jane's dad. So. He's
60 plus.
Yeah, he probably coming up to 70, I think. Right?
Jeez.
Doesn't look it, but
what did he think of the game?
Well, okay, so he's not someone who I've ever played a game with either. Right? He's not the kind of guy who shows up for dinner to even play cards.
Oh, so he's not a point A to point B type.
No, he's not. No, he's more of a deck builder kind of guy, right? But so like he came round, the family came round, and everyone except he and I were in the spa out the back, and I was like, let's just sit down and have a game. Right? I'm going to teach you this game. And he was quite amicable about it. Teaching someone who's not interested in games, but doing it just because he's being kind, was interesting. He played well, right? He kind of got it, but it was very foreign to him, even just the placement of what was going on the page. But he got into the swing of things, and he said he enjoyed it, right? Not something that he'd probably jump back into, I'm pretty sure I beat him only by a couple of points. Seems like I'm just really terrible at teaching games because whenever I play, I always lose.
Were you trying to lose?
No, I was playing my normal game.
Yeah,
right. But then I also played it with my 8-year-old twins, who both kicked my ass. Like Anna kicked my ass by 60 points. She did really well. But it was interesting watching them. So we discussed, it'll be a game that kids might be interested in. And because of the colours and the iconography, I think that they really, they cottoned onto a lot of things very, very quickly. They didn't understand the fox. icon, right, and how that actually worked. That was probably a little bit...
Who does, really? On that first game, you're like,
No one plays for the fox
No.
anyway, right? It's just a little bonus at the end that you go, oh, shit, I should get a couple more
Look,
extra foxes
Look, if you
can.
really want that 300 score, you're going to play for the foxes.
That's
But let's be
right.
honest, we're not doing it at the start.
But, like, they both played their own little style of game. They got the rules. They understood the rolling components, that they understood which numbers they could take and which numbers they should avoid straight off the bat. So, it was a gamble. I didn't know how they'd go, but and Robbie loved it and thought he was winning the whole time. He looked like he was winning the whole time, and then right at the end, Anna just plonked out this 196 point win to my 112, which I was like, that's the worst score I've ever gotten in this game. Like, I wasn't trying to lose.
I am no good at this game.
How did they go with the optional powers? Because that can be the bit that throws kids off. I think the fact that you can choose to use your extra action if you want. I
gave them a lot of prodding, right? And told them this would be a good time to use your extra roll or your extra pick here and stuff like that.
So really, she won because of you. That's why.
She may have won in spite of me.
Right,
I
okay.
wasn't being overly helpful and saying this is really, really good, but a couple of times, the game once again, she just managed to luck out a six digit combo right out of nowhere. So they both loved it, more so than Mark did. Not that Mark didn't enjoy it, but as I said, he's just not his style thing. So interesting that I got both spectrums at the end of the ages and out of a game that I've fallen in love with since we first played with it.
That's great.
And that leads into really, our gateway of, game of the week this week, which was Azul, which was brand new to me again. And out of all of the gateway games we've played so far, this one's the one I think I cottoned onto the quickest. Right, which may sound a bit weird, but if I'm the litmus test as to how quickly a game can be learnt, this would be one of the ones where I found, maybe outside of Garnish and Clever, that I understood the concept. I got the rules pretty quickly. Couple of little niggly bits of just where Ralph had pointed out, hey, that was probably not the smartest decision there, which was very kind of him.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to...
I'm being serious. It was very kind.
It was on the first move of the game, and then it was like maybe on the
and then about
first round of
I'm not having a go. It was very kind of you to say, hey, that was a dumb move. There's a better option for you. I wasn't paying attention to anyone else's board at all.
Do you want to explain what the game is for people who haven't played Azul?
All right, I'll give it a go.
Give it a go.
So, we're in Portugal, I believe.
Yeah, Portuguese, yeah.
Man, all right. Off to a flying start so far.
It's killing
Stay with us. I promise you it's a good game. Stay with us. I promise you it's a good game. I promise.
We're not in Germany. We're in Portugal, okay.
Well, colourful.
Very colourful. It's we're building a tile deck, I suppose. It's a courtyard. Portuguese wall out of 5 different style of tiles. We take it in turns to select from a group of what are called factories, but there's spots that we can choose one of 4 tiles or one style of tile from that factory, and they're just randomly drawn from a bag. And then whatever we don't choose out of that style goes into a centralized pot for everyone to pick from. And we've got to build up this wall bit by bit. On your board, you've got the ability to place a style of tile in either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 locations, and you have to have that number of tiles to complete a row. And then we're just filling up our board, essentially. But there are a couple of interesting rules about how you fill up your wall. So you don't go straight to the wall. We go to almost a holding area first. You've got to fill that holding area up first. You can't place on the wall until you've completed a line. And if you select more tiles than you have space for, you lose points. Well, the thing I actually quite liked about it, other than the usual colour and tactility of things, was once I'd gotten onto, all right, there is a little bit of strategy here. Once again, falling back into that gateway game, it's not overly competitive. Didn't feel like I was really trying to screw anyone over at first. I'm sure you could play the game that way, but once again, it's probably to your own detriment to play balls to the walls, I'm gonna go out to knife someone.
Well, I actually did a move in this game that just sort of knifed Anthony a little
Twice.
bit. Twice did it, was
Yeah,
it?
it was
Well,
twice.
yeah, and Nick took a couple of
but
actions where I was
yeah.
like, well, that stuffs me up. So it's not it's not completely cooperative or anything. But yeah, it's not solitaire. But it isn't, as I said, it's not a knife in the back kind of game. So
Yeah, I love Azul. Like it looks very pretty. It feels very pretty because it's like that tactile tiles. But I've played this with my mum, my niece and nephew. That they all picked it up really quickly, and we all just had an enjoyable time with it.
Yeah, I really like it too. I mean, I'm only relatively new to it. I've only played it a couple of times on Board Game Arena. This is the first time that I've actually played it in person. Azul kind of made a lot of headway when it came out in 2017, 5 years ago, for two reasons. One, it was very colourful and very unique. Nothing had really had this kind of style of Portuguese, like, backdrop, very colourful kind of hex shapes. It almost reminds me of like a kitchen splashback sort of thing.
That's exactly what it is.
It is.
My sister's got they got a forno, which is like an Italian pizza oven in the backyard. And the back of that is Portuguese tiles, and it looks pretty much exactly like this.
Okay, so it's
really
basically that kind of style. So that's what reminds me of that. So, but what really set it apart was it was one of the first games that really used these high quality, almost like they're not ceramic.
They kind of look like Starburst.
Yeah, they like Starburst size, but they kind of feel like ceramic, but they're not ceramic. It's like that really high quality plastic. So when you hold onto these things, they've got a bit of weight. You can put them on the board.
Easy to set up. Like the actual,
very easy.
There wasn't a lot really to worry about.
All the tiles are in a bag, so you just pull them out of the bag, and that's your randomize.
And this might be another conversation for another podcast of ours, but my copy of the game is actually a counterfeit copy.
Oh, is it?
So you looking at it and playing it, you wouldn't notice, but some of the tiles, like they're off print.
Right.
And that's the sign that it's actually a counterfeit version.
Right. Okay.
But
wouldn't have noticed.
You wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was once again sticking to our overarching theme of the podcast. As far as gateway games go, this is certainly a good one.
Yeah.
Once again, it's not too simple, but it's something that I think a lot of people would look at from a distance, right? So when we talked about games that are scary to look at it when they're all set up and go, oh, there's too much going on here, I don't think it's that at all. But it's also not one that's so simple that you'd think, well, why am I wasting my time with this little flimsy game, right? It's kind of mid-range there.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go.
Sorry, this game actually for quite a while was my gaming group's warm-up game. Just like while we're waiting for that one extra person to show up, we'll whip this out because like you can play it within 20 minutes even. And it's so funny playing this with serious strategic thinkers of a board gamer, because they take like a good couple of minutes to take their turn, and I just like took 30 seconds, not even, sometimes instantly, to take my tile because I knew I was going to lose that game, and somehow I won it, and that was still my most memorable game of this.
It has a few things where, especially with the first game, so we played this game in about 35 minutes, including the teach, so it played really quickly. And it is really simple. There are a few of the decisions came down to, would it be better for me to take a couple of loss of points here, or is it just take some other things? So I really like what you kind of touched on, Matt, the style of game where it's not direct confrontation, but it's about the efficiency of, taking the first place. So if you take from the center pile, so every time you take from one of the 6 locations around the center, you take one style of tile, as you said, and then you push the other ones in, creating a bigger and bigger stockpile from ones that you can take. Now, at some point, you're going to hit a critical mass where you're like, I really want those ones that group from in the center because that'll help me build up the 5 or so. But if you're the first one to do that, you take the first player token, which is great because you get the first turn next round. However, you lose 1 point for doing that. So you have to weigh up when is it worth it. However, what ended up happening was, Matt, he came second, you beat me by a point, but we both lost to Ralph by about 30, 25 or 28 or so. But we realized that in this game,
shockers.
yeah, you had to take the biggest pile of like 8 tiles because that was what was remaining, which ended up meaning you lost 14 to 15 points in one.
Right at the beginning of the game, you had like a -6 points, right? You took this -6 point. I'm like, oh, that must suck, right?
It does suck.
And then I've gotten 2 in a row of -14. Like, well, no, that really sucks.
Yeah, that did really suck. But like that's what ended up happening is I realized thinking back on it, which is Ralph took the first player token a lot, which meant that you kind of got left with the dregs a lot of the time based on towards the end of the rounds. And that's where the confrontation, which is, it sometimes would be better to take the -1 point to make sure you get first pick and get all the best stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you'll be left with the crap. And that's kind of what ended up happening here.
It's the type of game that meta opens up at different player counts as well. With my wife, we were playing on the train on Board Game Arena, and she will purposely take tiles to block me all the time, and I will do the same to her. So the meta does change quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I also just want to point out, we're talking just like the original Azul. There's since been like 4 reiterations from the same
Azul,
publisher.
Summer Pavilion, Azul, Autumn.
Is it all the same base game, but just different styles, or
They all play extremely differently.
wow, okay.
They unveiled a new one, I believe, at Gen Con just last week. So there's a lot of hype around that.
Cool.
I've played Summer Pavilion. It's okay.
Most people say Azul is still the best.
Azul is still the original. Azul is still the best one. But yeah.
I mean, that's the same with a lot of things, not just board games, where you fall in love with one style, and the I'm assuming the styling of the game. I'm sure probably colours and tiles and things
it looks
change,
very pretty. Yeah.
But the base game that you fell in love with hasn't changed so much. It's just got a new, fresh coat of paint or a different outlook at things.
Yeah.
You still love that original game. It's hard to beat that.
Yeah.
But that'd be interesting to actually, for another maybe a Sunday where we actually play 3 or 4 of the same game but in different iterations, and then rate them against each other, right? What we liked and how,
that could be cool.
if we could see how games developed and things like that. But yeah, I comparing it even to King Domino, right? In that same style of when do you take your turn and which piece do you take for this round, but then also next round, I suppose. And I didn't. I think I only took the first player token
once
or twice at the most. And that was to my detriment at the end. But first game, and I had no idea really what I was doing in that sense. But I really did like it. I'd come back to it.
Yeah, so that's a more relaxing game. Well, they're both relaxing games in a way. But
yeah.
Well, look, and again, the general consensus is that this is a really highly loved game. I mean, we've mentioned BGG ranks quite a bit on this episode, but I think it gives you a good idea of, like, there's over 25,000 registered board games now that have a rank on the board game rating system, and this one is now ranked 65. So it's people for being, and it's got a weight of 1.75 out of 5, right? So it's such an easy game, but it has a lot of depth to it because it does matter when you take some things, but also not even just the depth to it. It's just people like putting it in front of people. People really rate putting Azul in front of people for the colors. And I think, I don't own it, and I haven't owned because I was like, Ralph's got it, he'll bring it, we'll play it. But again, I've got a wish list of like things and get my Gameology account where I just go and see what's there because I look monitoring prices. Azul has been sitting there for 6 months. Targi has been sitting there for like 6 months as well. I'm like going, when do I pull the trigger? And I still don't know if I will, but only because I've seen it in some local gaming stores where I'm like, maybe I'll just go buy it from there and support the friendly local game stores. So yeah, is there anything else you guys want to say about Azul?
Well, just comparing it to another game, Sagrada, right? Which
what's Sagrada?
So Sagrada's in a similar style where you're taking tiles, but they're panes of glass, and you're actually filling up a stained glass window. But the difference, I suppose, in the game, I would probably rate Sagrada as probably the next level up in terms of complexity because it changes every time you play.
So because you're also using dice, and the pip value of the dice also changes.
Obviously,
things.
different mechanisms, but you're not playing the same board every time. And so there's 20, 24 different cards.
Yeah.
You actually pick which card you want, and they have different difficulty ratings as well. So the higher difficulty gives you more points, but is harder to fill. And the way that the game in Sagrada works is that there are 9 dice chosen from a bag. There's 5 different coloured dice, and I think there's something like 90 miniature dice, right?
Dice in that bag.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And then one of those dice technically becomes your timer, right? You play until I think it's 8 rounds from memory. I can't remember, but in order, you'd say, first player chooses first and eighth, and second and seventh, etc., etc.
Right.
So
So like a snake draft sort of thing.
That's
like
right.
It goes up and then comes back
down.
Yeah, so high priority. Yep.
So you get first pick of which dice you want, but you also then would get the
dregs.
last pick, and you've got to place a dice.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game is when you've run out of dice. You don't necessarily have to fill everything. If you don't place a dice, you lose a point. And there are other rules that actually match it up. So that every game plays differently. There may be a rule that says in a vertical row you've got to have 4 different colours, or in a horizontal row you have to have all 5 different colours. Or you may play a game where nothing orthogonally can be touching of the same value or same colour and stuff like that.
And I think that's the main difference is those objectives.
Yeah, those
I
objectives
love
change it.
Where you have like a clear path as to what you want to do. That varies all the time.
But every time I've played Sagrada, which has mostly been at the Goobercons, as I said, I've never played it all out, right? I usually pull a couple of cards back in just because the people who play it are my mum and auntie and stuff like that, who aren't gamers but are attracted to the colours.
And the theme pulls them in stained glass windows.
Yeah, that's right. The theme pulls them in.
Yeah.
But I think that Azul would be a good comparison to that game, right? As I said, like next year, maybe we bring out Azul for those people instead.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, let's get this underway and then kind of migrate to upwards to Sagrada and throw in a couple extra rules.
Because the mechanics are a little bit similar where you're picking something and putting it down. So
Yeah.
I could definitely see the comparison there. I would love to play Sagrada at some point. I've only played the solo version of it, which is still pretty good. Azul doesn't have a solo version, so that's 1 point to Sagrada. Actually, that's what they're finding is when there are solo variants offered in games, the games sell a lot better.
Yeah?
As well.
Yeah, there's a very big solo gaming thing going on at the moment.
Okay.
A lot of people, are, especially with COVID, are finding like the love of just playing games by themselves and trying to beat the game. And
Well, every day on Facebook, like in the different gaming communities we're in, most of the posts are from people who over the weekend have played either with just one player or have soloed themselves through a game, right?
Yeah.
Actually, there was a post today, a guy set up the game for all 5 players and played all 5 seats just to teach himself the game.
of Wonderland's War.
How do you keep track of that?
I saw that as well. I saw some guy did a 4-player Gloomhaven, and I'm like, no way.
Wow.
No way.
Surely you've got to keep notes like on every player, like where was I?
That's
What
where
was
your
my
board.
thought
That's
process?
where your board game table comes, so you can just leave
Yeah.
stuff, and leave it ready to go.
I think you got to ship your whole family out for the weekend if you're going to do something like that.
Yeah. But anyway,
All right, shall we move on to fun games?
I think we should. So to our discussion topic for the week.
I think we should. Well, let's get. Actually, you know what? Have you got Facebook up?
I do.
We're gonna need to have this. I think we all need to have this up while we're doing it. So,
Well, should we feature some of our own pet peeves, and then we'll move on to the crowdsourcing ones?
Let's just say, for example, someone has gotten to this point without having listened to what is our discussion topic, Mr. Host?
wait a minute. Our discussion topic is pet peeves. That
Hells
was
yeah.
one of our topics.
Hells yeah.
As long as we're not talking about my motif for the evening.
What was your motif?
My
again, sorry?
motif is crack-a-lackin'.
Crack-a-lackin'.
It's a crack-a-lackin' podcast tonight. I'll tell you what, it's like a firecracker. That's for certain. All right, so this is gonna be fun. We can air out some grievances.
The airing of grievances. That's it.
The airing of grievances.
This is our Festivus.
So we can do that, and we can also this is the one where we asked for people on Facebook to give us yours, and
All right,
a lot of people were family, but we're going to start with our own.
I think we should start with our own, which may be a bit more board game related and less Get Lost Anthony related.
Yeah, pretty much. Look,
I am looking forward to that.
we will say right off the get go though, any of these pet peeves though are to be taken with the best of jest, especially if it's aimed at myself specifically, or Ralph for that matter. If Tina had a go, we'll find out.
Oh, for sure.
But it's more so to have a look at what are some of the things in board gaming that just really, it just gets you going. Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your first one? This is a safe space. You can open up to us now.
Well, the first one I noted was mostly my own slow brain, which is just because I struggle always with, especially with big games, just to get my head around things. So it's probably not a pet peeve so much as just me being condescending to myself.
So you hate your own brain. I think we're gonna have to get the support line on the phone or something.
It's more by comparison to everyone else. When you're sitting around a table, and even in a new game, if there's another new player and they're getting it before you, it's like, why, how I didn't latch onto that little, mechanic or whatever it is, and it's just, I've had to get used to that. That's fine. So that's probably not a pet peeve so much as it is, as I said,
my grievance.
My own grievance, if it's my own. That's right.
Look, my pet peeve is I've put it here as explanation, but what I meant to say was the elevator pitch, because I hate having to try and elevator pitch a game to people, because sometimes the themes are just so dry that I'm like, no, seriously, I promise you, this is a good game. Like, even something like Azul.
You're so desperate.
Yes, even like something like Azul, right, where the game is, we're making a Portuguese tile splashback, and we're putting really, and he's like, it's a pet peeve of mine where I'm like, I have to be a salesman. I have to tell people.
That's right.
I have to sell you on the game before I can even get you to sit down.
Let's on this pet peeve. Give me the most exciting sales pitch, and it's got to be like less than 20 seconds of Azul. Go.
All right. Hey Matt, have you ever wanted to be a tile layer?
See, you've already lost.
I know.
No, I don't.
What am I supposed to... All right.
No. I'll got you what, Matt, do you like to get laid? With tiles, you can.
Do you like bags? Well, I've got bags with tiles in it. What's inside that bag? You'll have to sit down and play and find out.
See? Yeah, it's just not working.
Do you like bags? What am I supposed to do here? What am I supposed to do? And so that's my first pet peeve is having to be a salesman to get a game to the table.
Yes, that sucks.
All right, Ralph, hit us up.
You're up.
I'm going to start with some boring ones, and that way I can finish on a high a bit later. I'm going to target the board game industry very quickly.
All right, yeah, please do. We'll take on big board games.
Definitely. Let's take down Fantasy Flight. Let's see. No, I'm kidding. But speaking of which, I hate bad inserts in games, man. If I'm spending over $100 for a game, I want it to fit nicely in the box. I don't want to spend another $80 on cardboard to put in the box.
Yeah.
I hate that.
But you know what? Like on that's only really something that's being fixed now, right? With the resurgence of board games, how many old school board games, like, they just ended up this pile of crap in the box, right?
Yeah.
It's good that they are fixing it up now.
The box was literally a vessel for the
get
board.
all the shit to your house.
No, for the board, right?
Yeah.
You're taking a game of Monopoly, right? The Monopoly board used to be only fold in half, so it was a rectangle.
Yeah.
The reason why the Monopoly box is as long as it is because they hadn't invented the four-fold player board. They only did it as a half-fold.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, other than the board, it's some cards and some
cash.
token and some cash and some tokens.
Yeah.
The whole Monopoly board could be shrunk down to a quarter of the size if the board was the right thing. But that's bad inserts.
And the other thing I hate is also the estimated playtime on boxes. I don't know, Azul, alright, fair enough. I think that's
Concordia said it should be played in 100 minutes. Our one took us over 140 minutes to play the game.
What does TI say on the box?
It says
4 hours?
It's
really?
Nah, it's like 6 hours or something like that. But even then, that's still a stretch.
I don't believe that.
It's like 1 hour per player. Try 2 hours per player.
Yeah, I know, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I've got to factor in sleep in there somewhere.
I wonder how many people purchase games with that information in mind, though.
I don't know. I know, they might think of the age group, but not.
Well, it may be a conjunction. If you know that you're buying a game for an 8-year-old, you probably don't want an 8-year game that's good for 8 to 8 and up that plays at 2 hours. You're like, my 8-year-old's not going to sit through that. So maybe that's
but they're my two biggest. The other one, the last one's actually probably the biggest, and you touched on it a couple times tonight, Matt. Rule books.
Yeah,
you need to be able to understand it, especially living card games. They release a rule book every 6 months, and they have to live update it. I'm like, just do it right the first time.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make a new rule or something, fair enough. But
that's on that, right? Like, out of the games you've played, what's the best rule book that you've opened up? I have to give a couple.
Just one, but that's literally.
But if we're talking big book games,
I'd say Mage Knight.
Mage Knight, yeah?
The rule book is fantastic.
I honestly can't remember because a lot of the time the rule books that I generally will go straight to BGG and look for a digital version.
Dead Reckoning's got a good one.
Dead Reckoning does have a good one.
And it also has a well-packed box.
It does. It literally, speaking of pet peeves, Dead Reckoning fixes that issue because it literally on the underside of the box has a diagram to show you how everything should go back in the box. Now, however, they are just about to. I just did kickstart their expansion, and if their expansion don't fit in my big ass Dead Reckoning box, I am not going to be happy.
So I own pretty much all the expansions for Scythe.
Yeah.
And they have basically a box you can buy where you can fit all the expansions in it, but the box itself is like $70.
Oh.
And I'm like, I'm not spending $70
on a box.
I'm not gonna do it.
Look, he's not here at the moment, but I do feel like Blake did put down a pet peeve, and he did want to say this one. So he did say people who gatekeep board games, and we're specifically talking about the people who are like, they're sitting down to play a game, and someone says, "Hey, can I come and play?" And he or she will be like, "No, sorry, you probably wouldn't understand this game."
Yeah.
The idea of like saying if someone is showing an active interest in our hobby, and then you say, "No, this isn't for you." It's like, who are you to really
not even
say?
No, just would you really, this is like just immediately turning people off. It's a long game. You're really sure you want to sit with us?
It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, we talked about this last week on Discord, but Ralph, we've talked about how most people will go, "Let me hear the rules first, and then if I decide that this is not for me, I'll bow out." Like most people will do that. But I think as well, like the idea of, especially there can be a lot of, I have found there can be a lot of shut-ins and a lot of people who are maybe a bit introverted, who maybe don't have the social skills because maybe they've reverted to maybe a lot of, I don't know. And I have seen quite a few people who can be very like, "Man, this is my hobby," like that kind of thing. But I haven't seen that in our local groups, which has been really good. Our local groups has been very good at making sure, hey, you're here, let's sit down and play a game.
I have seen that in other groups.
I will find. I do think board gaming is better than most hobbies. I think because it is, but the larger that any hobby gets, the more that you are going to find these gatekeepers and people who think, "No, I was here before the golden age. You pleb," So
as you said, with anything that happens outside of your workplace, I'm assuming there's always those kind of people. But it also does depend on who. Like, I mean, let's once again come back to Captain Second Place over here. Like, if you don't have the right attitude of someone who is new, right? The new players have to also be joining up and ready to acknowledge, I'm going to be probably shit, and we all need to be okay with that. If you come in and think you're better than you are, it's hard to
Why
then get
would you
excited
do
about
that move? That seems like the... Actually, I will say there was one game that I did play, and it always comes up. All right, so I was playing a game of Hansa Teutonica on TTS Club, but it was like my first game that I'd ever played, right? And so I went into TTS Club, looked for a pickup game, and said, "Yep, I'd like to play," and said, "Hey, so then you know that I'm new," and whatever, right? So I was playing with four guys from around the world, and two of them knew each other, one didn't, and it was myself. Now, when I was playing the game, I was playing it to try and understand, but I didn't understand the nuances. So in the opening 5-6 rounds of the game, I was doing things that I thought were good, but apparently weren't good. Now, the guy who was teaching me the game was really good, but one of the guy he knew was messaging him through Discord, and I knew he was messaging him because he was kind of making a thing saying like, so-and-so saying that, he's raging, like he kind of mentioned to me, he goes, he's like raging at me in private because you're doing things that are obviously helping that guy, and that guy is getting a bit of a head start. Now, I said, look, I don't know this game. I'm literally, you came into this knowing it's my first game. This is not going to be optimized gameplay. This is not going to be me doing the best. This is me trying to figure out the game. I don't know the nuances of why I should be blocking this route versus why me taking this route is good for that guy, right? So much of this stuff. And that really did sour my experience in that first play, because I'm like, that was the first time I experienced someone going, "Oh, he's shit, he's ruining the game." I'm like, I'm not ruining the game. I'm trying to learn this damn game. Yeah. Like, sorry, I don't have 50 hours of gameplay in it already by the time that on my first gameplay. Anyway, but
leading on to that into other elements, right? Like, as a musician, there's also that fear when you want to play with a larger group of people in a jam session, right? That, all right, well, where do I fit in the talent pool here?
Yeah,
right?
I've had that feeling.
Am I in the top
times.
or at the bottom, right? And then when you start, like, usually if you're in a good group, it doesn't matter. Everyone covers for each other. Everyone makes mistakes. We're all playing along, right? But it's always that fear. And then there are always those people who are like look at you when you make a bung note, right? Like, what the, get your shit together kind of stuff, right? And that doesn't make you feel good.
In a group of friends, and when you're all on the same level, that's just funny. If you make a mistake, you're like, you stuffed up.
Yeah, that's right.
You know? But,
And usually cascades into someone else was making a mistake, so it's all good.
That's the same in board gaming too. When someone makes a mistake and like they can't take that back because their turn's already passed, you're like, you stuffed up there, did it?
Yeah. Well, the next one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, the next one that I want. So thank you, Blake, here in spirit. The next one that I want to bring up is my personal pet peeve, which is, as the person with the board gaming collection, and generally I'm the person that has to teach the board gaming collection.
Ditto that.
Which, I know this is my hobby, and I'm got my willing test subjects, but I absolutely hate when people are using mobile phones during a rules explanation, because I'm trying my best to remember 6 pages worth of rules in my head and make it entertaining, and also then try and make sure that this game is entertaining for you. So I am fully aware of how boring a rules explanation is at the beginning of the game. I know you just want to play the game. So do I. But I have to get through this so we can all be on the same page. And if you're using your phone and I have to repeat myself because you're not giving me attention, it's just plain rude. It's just freaking rude. I really wish you would just put it down for 10 minutes, let me get through it, and then if you're still bored, okay. But it's the worst when they go, sorry, you didn't explain that rule. It's like, yes, I explained that damn rule, but you were on your damn phone.
See, I sometimes get told that and no one's on their phone. It's just like, Ralph, you forgot to explain this. I'm like, yeah, I probably did. But I've had a friend over and we played a game, but the thing is, the entire time they played the game, they were on their phone. Ouch. It's not like they finished their turn and they just started fidgeting. It's just they barely looked up off their phone.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, I was friends with that person, but we don't play games together.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you got for us? What's your other one that you got? And I think we've got a few more, and then we'll get to our Facebook ones.
I put down another one that says big setup and small gameplay, and I'm
you're all about the foreplay, huh?
No. There's some games where you spend half an hour setting the damn thing up,
yeah,
but you don't do much with it, right? Like there's like no matter how long the game actually plays for, you still aren't interacting with all of that setup that you've gone through. So, there's a couple of games, and honestly, my mind is crap at the moment. But
so you're saying, like, when there's a lot of things out in
when
front
there's
of
so
you,
many
you
bits
don't
and
touch
pieces.
it,
Well, that's right.
Okay.
Like you could. There are so many options that not only is it overwhelming, but if you don't end up playing with half of the resources or half of the tokens or whatever it is, then what a waste of time, and if you spent half an hour setting the damn thing up, as I said, I can't think of an actual game off the top of my head.
No, I've experienced, like, Gloomhaven would be one. That's one of the games where I'm like, I could not be bothered playing that. Look, as much as I love the game, Millennium Blade suffers from this. Getting that game set up to play, just you have to you have to copy, you have to shuffle 10 decks of cards together, plus a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's one thing.
What I loved about Gloomhaven, I'm playing Frosthaven shortly when that arrives as well. I think late this year, actually. It's kind of a cathartic experience because I'm playing it with 4 guys. We're all gamers. We're all excited for it. So when there's 10 decks to shuffle and things to set up, we're all doing that. And it's just a lot of fun. But if you're doing it on your own, man, I wouldn't bother. No way. One of the other pet peeves that I have actually is just players complaining about the game while you're still playing it. I'm more happy to have that debrief about the game afterwards. And, by all means, tell me what you really think. But if we're all still actively having fun with it, don't shit on it.
Yeah.
Don't rain on someone else's parade whilst they may be enjoying it. Don't want to sour it.
That's it. And also, I'm a guy that always provides the games typically in my friends and family group. But, when you play a game, you're respectful to the other players, but you're also respectful to the physical game.
Yeah.
I've spent money on this. I don't need you half tearing up a card.
Yeah.
I don't need you bending it or rolling a piece of paper or anything like that.
That's right. We're not children. Yeah. Come on.
No.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. So
shall we go? Well,
you go.
Ralph's got
you go for it. I'll mention this one later.
I'm sure it's going to come up. So we put the call out to Facebook. And our friends and family actually responded to the call. Thank you very much, guys. So we'd like to acknowledge some of them now. So we're going to go through some of our Facebook comments. So you can go to facebook.com/groups/boardgamegateway.
Oh, this will be good.
So first one off the cab, we have Reese Shelley Jones. Reese, he's one of our admins for the board game, for the MacArthur Board Gamers. His one says, when someone sleeves their games with penny sleeves or sleeves that are too big, Now, this is only one for if you've ever played with games that have card sleeves. But yeah, if you sleeve a card that's in the wrong size card, they're really crap to handle. They are really crap to handle. I can understand
What's a penny
that.
sleeve?
It's
They're
like
just
cheap
saying.
sleeves.
I am guilty of that. Like we
I've done
touched
it too.
we touched on Marvel Champions. That thing I've got over 1,000 cards for it. I bought the cheap.
You're
sleeves.
you're his pet peeve, Ralph. You're his pet peeve. All right, Ralph. All right, so we have a Ralph Tedesco. Ralph, he commented on
You were
this.
second cab off the rank.
What did I do?
You wrote one here, so
You and your wife got to do a sparring match.
Oh, that's a normal day to
Hold on,
day.
hold
That's a point A to point B.
Mate, you please take the role of Ralph, and I'll take the.
Yes, please. This would be great.
I'll be Tina. Here we
Little
go.
role
Ready?
play? Okay.
Yeah, here we go.
I don't know,
You're Ralph.
I've never impersonated Ralph before. This is going to be very difficult.
Here we go. Let's see where we go.
When you, no, I'm not even going to bother. When you take 2 turns away from winning, when you are like 2 turns away from winning the game, and someone says, "Guys, Ralph's going to win in 2 turns," clearly hiding the fact that they will win in 1 turn. Yeah, I can understand that. When you're covering someone by misdirecting and saying, "Everyone look over there at what he's doing," but still. I've actually come to think of it, I've never done that.
So then
I'm never the one
Tina's
who's going to win in 1 turn.
Yeah.
Tina, your wife entered the chat and went, "I thought you would say having your wife offer refreshments at random and inconvenient intervals."
To which Ralph replied, "Tina Tedesco, need a dedicated phase for that?"
Enter Arc Nova.
So
And
I think we need a little bit of backstory on this one.
Yeah.
It seems to
end
be-
scene. Yeah, I think we need. Yeah, you got to let us all in here, Ralph.
So we love to have friends over, right?
Yep.
And Quacks of Quedlinburg, right? You guys have all played it. You all love it. It's a game that's just... It's a great, fun, silly game. I call it like the Mario Kart of board games. Everyone can play around with it. It's funny.
It will be one of our board games of gateway games
100%.
coming up soon. Yeah.
100%. So I won't explain it now. But essentially, after all the fun part of the game, there's little phases in between where, you get your points and
The admin.
The admin part of it.
Yeah.
And you have to go through every part of admin. But we'll get chatting with our group. And it's fine. We're chatting with people we love. That's fantastic. But my wife will offer refreshments. She'll go away, make 10 minutes worth of coffee, make coffee for 10, 15 minutes. We'll come back and then she'll be like, "Where are we up to in the game?" Like, I don't freaking know!
So your pet peeve is that your wife is too hospitable.
She's too hospitable.
Good to know.
She's too hospitable. But so now at the start and end of that little phase in the game, we have refreshment phases.
Oh, the refreshment phase.
So that's what
right.
we do.
Okay.
And that's why Arc Nova's great, because there's a coffee cup that you move in the game and it says break. It just naturally has a break phase. So
it
that's
does.
fantastic.
That it does. So, I think as well, just to come back to your initial point though, I do love how it's not really a peeve, but I do think it is really funny how we all play the long game of like, I'm coming second and I need everyone to gang up on Matt because he's winning. Hey guys, look over there.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so then we're going to move down to our next one, which is Carlos. Carlos, one of our friends, has put one down and said, when someone's not paying attention asks, whose go is it? On their turn. Now, I will say the amendment to this one is, if you have been thinking about your turn, you're literally
I thought
lost
this
in
was a bit
thought.
harsh.
You're lost in thought. You're like, oh, wait, sorry, it's my turn.
I'm pretty sure everyone around this table has had moments where they've done that. And it's not because they're not paying attention. It's because they're paying too much attention to everyone else's game.
I do find, though, this one does kind of compound with if you're on your damn phone or not
for
paying
sure.
attention, that's when this one really starts to really become a pet peeve, which is
Definitely.
that, look, and this is why I've always said, if you're not enjoying the game, you don't have to play. You don't have to be a part of this. You can sit down and just chat. But it really does slow the game down. That I actually do really, I really do. I don't like that when I really, I
Usually
agree
when
with
I'm
Carlos.
guilty of that, it's because not only have I watched someone else's... Like, I'm trying to figure out, well, what the hell did Ralph just do to get that many points? And why haven't I succeeded in that yet?
Yeah.
Like, what does he know that I don't know?
Yeah, that's right. So that's a good one. I do agree with that. Then we have.
I love Reese. This next comment's
Yeah,
still great.
Reese came back with another good one, which we said, when someone attends a meetup without Links Africa on.
Yeah.
Those,
That's a nice little callback.
Yeah,
Those plebs.
It's like, what are you doing with your, it's like, what, you're too good? Your mum doesn't buy you the body wash pack at Christmas?
That's right. Your mum, then your kids.
Exactly right. My mum has been buying me Lynx body wash for 3 years. I was 1 when she started, and she hasn't stopped, hasn't missed a year. But yeah, no, I agree. I agree as well. Now we'll come down. So this one, I'll let someone else can read this one, next one out.
You want me to read, Georgie?
Yeah, you want to be my wife?
No, I don't want to be your wife. That's the offer.
My lovely wife decided to chime in.
Georgie chimes in with, when someone forgets a crucial role when teaching a game that they so happen to discover at the moment they will greatly benefit in their own gameplay, and conveniently for them, others can no longer benefit from knowing that rule and would have been really helpful to know at the beginning of gameplay.
I can't help but think she's targeting someone very specific in this comment. I don't know who.
I wonder.
In my defense,
when you look at the replies, it seems like everyone else also had the same person in mind as well.
In my defense, I have to learn and remember a dang rule book and then teach it normally to people before I've actually had a chance to play the game.
I'm going to come in for the opposition here and say, that's always your excuse, though.
That's all I have, okay? Do you know how many games I've got now? Somehow I remember most of the rules to 130 plus games.
Yeah, I don't think it's that the crux of this gripe is that a very specific rule that is very beneficial to know.
You know what I've started doing now? I've just started not saying those rules anymore. Where I'm just like, oh no, I'm just gonna have to wait till the end of the game now and just go, I totally botched that because I remembered it just before a specific point, and just to stop that one. The next one is so Katie Louise McLaughlin. Your sister, my cousin as well, she chimed in saying, this one shits me. And Maddie Glynn also, your sister-in-law chimed in and said the same thing. This is also mine. But then my wife decided to chime in again. She decided to chime in with a very specific thing, which another one, which was, when you ask a question about a game and given the response, no, only to learn the answer is actually yes again. It only comes out at a time at the convenient to their gameplay.
Okay, which side of the coin do you want to take on this one? Are you defending yourself?
In my defense,
or are you going to go with Georgie's side?
In my defense, that has happened a couple of times. I can't defend myself on that.
You know what? I think I'm going to jump in for your defense there, because I'm sure there's a number of times when it's in the explanation of the rules, the easiest way to get into the game is to answer in the affirmative or the negative, because, okay, cool. Then when it changes halfway through the game, which, happens in a lot of games, then it changes. But it's very confusing to explain the change at the beginning.
The other thing as well is also I have to, as the rules, one of my things has been always, I want to get you guys into the game. So I half-ass sometimes the rule explanation to get you into the game so we can start playing, and then I'll be reading the rule book throughout the game, trying to make sure that I've got stuff and so you can play.
Yeah.
That does lead to frustrations when people are like, well, why can't I do this thing that you said I could do? And I'm like, I stuffed up. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, like my wife and I, we've probably played like 3 or 4 games of Ark Nova now, and she always forgets there's this one rule where you can forego your turn to get a little bonus. And when I did it late game the other night, she was like, I forgot that was a thing. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, we were playing it for 2 hours already.
Damien then chimed in, basically said, my biggest pet peeve is when I am invited to a game day and the host does not offer homemade wood-fired pizza. Totally disrespectful. That's it.
Sorry, Damien.
Yeah, so, that's something there. Kate then chimed in with one. Katie Louise said, when you get invited to a game night and you don't know the rules, but you don't listen to them and ask inane questions for the entirety of the gameplay, closely followed by knowing how to play the game and listening to someone explain the rules wrong. So
seems like she's dobbing herself in a little bit.
A little bit, I think she is. But at least she knows she's
That's
wrong.
Right. Yeah. That honesty is still refreshing.
The next one that we have is from Katie as well, which she said, when your friend is an avid gamer and will drop into conversation at any time, this new game that they are excited to play and think you'll really enjoy, and you do, and then you're addicted. But you don't have the board game money like they do, so they have to spend time with them just to play their dumb game. So
that's gold.
So we need to buy Kate some games, I think.
I have figured out who the people I buy Christmas presents for war games, and she's definitely one of those ones. But she always finds those really fun, quirky party games. Like she was the one who bought Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza or whatever it was.
That's a crowd favorite.
And yeah, it was great, right? But she buys all these really quirky ones I really love, and I love that she's got those ones too.
But Kate comes to a game with a no-nonsense attitude of, right, yep, let's go, come on, let's get into it.
No bullshit.
As if she, almost like she doesn't want to play. She just wants to get through whatever the next 2 hours has to be. Fine, I'll get through it. And by the end of it...
Let's have some fun!
That's right, she's, bloody love that game now.
Damn it!
Damn it, I fell in love.
The next one from Maddie says, all bags will be checked.
I think this needs a bit of an explanation.
This one was, so we were playing Sheriff of Nottingham.
That's the game.
And I was myself, Maddie, Kate, and Georgie's, and Tom, I believe. It was just 4 of us. And I was going through the rules, and I had told her, that at some point in the games, you can, as the sheriff, you can ask for bribes and you can do all stuff. Now, what happened was, in Sheriff of Nottingham, I always like to play up the sheriff, and the gag has become, all bags will be checked, because you have to provide the sheriff with your bag, and you have to check what's in the goods. So the game always devolved into this really surreal, really funny, I'm going to check your bag no matter what. But you can bribe the sheriff, right? Now, I had said, all bags will be checked, and then Katie came up to me, and she gave me a bag, and she put 2 or 3 coins on it, and I said, how dare you insult me in this way? And I took the coins and handed her a bag, right? So then Maddie, who was right after her, brought her bag up, and she said, I've got 5 chickens in there. Now, before she even had a chance to put the bribe down, I picked the bag up and popped the bag. Because when you pop the bag, that's the symbol that, I immediately have to check what's inside of the bag. And she goes, no, you have to let me bribe you. And I went, no, I don't. You should have put the bribe down with the bag. And let's just say, for the rest of the game, she was super pissed, and rightly so. But it led to
playing with Maddie. Once you're on the bad side of Maddie in a game, you never get back on the good side.
But it went down in infamy. And she still talked. And that was like 3 years ago, and still haven't talked about to this day. So that was not a pet peeve. I suppose that's not a board game pet peeve, but she will always know. But I said, all bags will be checked, even though I didn't check Katie's bag. But she should have known that the bag was going to be checked.
She's got no one to blame but herself, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's just how it goes. And our penultimate.
I have to let Ralph read this one.
Ralph,
really?
right, now you. So from a Mr. Matt Glynn, you have to now go ahead, Matt.
Okay. How do I do Matt's voice?
However you want.
When you're on the spot,
however you want.
Just put the dumbest accent you can think of.
I can't do accents, I'm not really a theatre performer myself.
So that's all right. Neither are we.
I place my worker here on the yellow square, which activates my jingling trident of destiny, and my bonus worker can take the trident onto the green square, killing the occupant instantly. No rolls needed. Sorry, Matt. Not sorry, Matt. And that starts the conquest phase. And at the beginning of each conquest phase, my team gets a 4-point bonus, so I instantly win the game. And then it's got a genie gift. It's just like jaw dropping.
I'm pretty sure I've concatenated a number of games into one horrible memory that just seems to keep recurring for me.
So that's why you can't sleep at night, huh?
Basically.
This reminds me of the Auntie Donna sketch. Well, you got to get the sheep to get the wood.
Yes.
And you need the wood to win the game. But why? You got the Don Quixote card. And you instantly went, so why am I collecting wood? Well, you need the wood to win the game.
Arrested Development did that really well as well with a cone game thing.
The cones of Dunshire in Parks and Rec. Yeah, so many good ones.
Parks and Rec, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. That's good.
Gold.
And our final one for the day, which is Brendan Cascarino, says... When Jared wins, and by marriage rights say he should let me win always.
Fair enough.
Well, look, I think your marriage proves that that's very patently false.
Oh, Georgie, I've said this to her all the time. I actually have to play well to win against.
Yeah, that's
Georgie,
right. She's not letting you win.
No, because if I don't, she will destroy me.
Yeah.
She takes a couple of games, but as soon as it clicks,
she will move into Bulgaria and destroy you.
Yeah, she will take Ankara, Armenia, whilst you move into Bulgaria. And oh my god, hell will break loose. Anyway, that was our pet peeves, and that was a really fun session. I really liked that. We're gonna need to get some more audience participation because that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think I feel refreshed after that, guys. I feel like I've got a lot off my chest there. How about you?
That was a good therapy session, that's for sure.
That's gold. All right, we're calling it a night here. I think we've had a pretty big session, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. This one's gone. This is our longest session so far. It's about at the hour and 25 mark at the moment.
That's just my standard. That's just the standard, mate.
Oh, but that's how it is. Now, before I give it back to you, Matt, to wrap us up, I will just say that if you have enjoyed the episode, please go to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/boardgamegateway. You can also go to our website, www.boardgamegateway.com. There you'll find all of our podcasts. You'll find some written pieces. Ralph has just released his first one on Love Letter. So that you can find that up on the website. You'll also find all the links to all of the podcast services you can subscribe to. We're on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. We're on most of them at the moment. So if you need one, please let us know.
And share with your friends, guys.
Yeah, please share. Please share. We've just surpassed. I think we're closing in on 500 podcast listens, which is pretty good. And yeah, we also have a Discord. We have a YouTube. But we will be pushing those more and more as we start getting more things. But we'd love to have you subscribe and listen to this podcast.
And also accepting your feedback as well.
Definitely.
If you've got some ideas of things you want to hear or
just
stuff you want to contribute.
Just ways we can improve as well. I've had a friend tell me just this week, and he said it felt very wholesome. You know, you guys all have great chemistry, and we want to share that with you guys too.
Absolutely. So other than that, that's our social media stuff, guys. So if you really do like it, we also would appreciate it if you're on Apple Podcasts and you can leave a review. The more if you like it, it helps put it out to more people, and we'd love to have you there. But that's my social media thing for the week, Matt. So
just quickly sign off, but I think just to put everyone on the spot, you guys have got to come up with your own motifs. So I'm signing off. This is Matt, and it's been crack-a-lackin'. Who's next?
This is Neeber, and I don't apologise for forgetting rules.
This is Ralph, and I'm all about the point A to point B tonight.
Oh, gold.
Oh, that's brilliant.
See you next time.
See you guys. Oh, God. That was good.
Alright, g'day everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of
6.
The document
5!
I know, but it's episode 6. I'm so sorry.
We're off to a flying start tonight.
Well, actually, the title of the document, the actual heading of the document says 00X. Sorry.
No, you're on a different
document.
No, but the pet
I just
peeves.
changed that.
See, at the top it says 00X.
Now it says 6.
Don't worry, Ralph had to have a second take that I edited out as well. Don't worry.
Did, and you spliced that beautifully.
I did, so it's all good. Maybe I won't splice this one, though. He didn't.
You didn't listen to the last episode, see?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Alright, let's go again.
You're right, I didn't listen to it. I don't listen to much, except for my own voice. And it's always soft.